The smell of fresh coffee and bacon filled the air at Murphy's diner, as Lisa wiped down the same table for the third time that morning. Her feet ached in her worn sneakers, but she kept moving. Working double shifts had become her normal routine over the past 2 years, and she couldn't afford to slow down now. At 26, Lisa had seen all kinds of people walk through those glass doors. Business people rushing in for quick coffee, truck drivers stopping for hearty meals, and late-night workers grabbing something warm before heading home. But 3 months ago, someone different started coming in. He looked to be in his early 30s, always wearing the same faded brown leather jacket that had clearly seen better days. His jeans were clean but old, with small tears near the knees that he seemed to try hiding. What caught Lisa's attention most were his shoes, black dress shoes with holes in the soles that he carefully positioned under the table so no one would notice. The man always chose the corner booth, the one with the ripped vinyl seat that most customers avoided. He would sit there quietly, looking out the window or reading old newspapers that other customers had left behind. His orders were always the same: black coffee and whatever was cheapest on the menu. Sometimes it was just toast with butter. Other days he would order a small bowl of soup that cost only $3. Lisa watched him count his money carefully before placing each order. He would pull out wrinkled bills from his jacket pocket, smoothing them out on the table and counting twice to make sure he had enough. After eating, he would leave exact change on the table. Never a penny more, never a penny less. No tip. The other waitresses had noticed too. During their break, they would whisper about the quiet man in the corner. "He never tips," complained Jenny, another waitress who had been working there for 5 years. "I stopped serving that section when he's there. Why waste time on customers who don't appreciate good service?" "Maybe he just doesn't have extra money," Lisa said softly, refilling the sugar containers. "Then he shouldn't be eating out," Jenny replied with a shrug. "That's not our problem." But Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his story. She had grown up in a family that struggled to make ends meet. She remembered her mother counting coins to buy groceries, and her father working 3 jobs just to keep their small apartment. She knew what it looked like when someone was doing their best with very little. So while the other waitresses avoided his section, Lisa made sure to take care of him. She would refill his coffee cup without being asked, bringing him extra cream even though he never requested it. When he ordered soup, she would bring extra crackers and make sure the bowl was filled to the brim. One rainy Thursday evening, the diner was particularly quiet. Only a few customers sat scattered around the restaurant, and the man was in his usual corner booth with his usual black coffee and piece of toast. Lisa noticed he kept looking at the daily special board where they advertised a turkey sandwich with fries for $8. She could see him checking his pocket, pulling out a few crumpled bills. His face fell slightly and he went back to his toast. Without thinking, Lisa made a decision. She went to the kitchen and asked Carlos, the cook, to make an extra turkey sandwich. "We're not that busy tonight," she told Carlos. "Make it look like a mistake." A few minutes later, Lisa approached the man's table with the sandwich and fries on a plate. "Excuse me," she said with a warm smile. "The kitchen accidentally made an extra sandwich and it'll just go to waste if no one eats it. Would you mind helping us out?" The man looked up at her with surprised eyes. They were kind eyes, Lisa noticed, but tired. There was something about his expression that reminded her of her own reflection during the hardest times in her life. "I couldn't," he said quietly. "I didn't order this." "Please," Lisa insisted. "It really will just get thrown away. You'd actually be doing us a favor." After a moment of hesitation, he accepted the sandwich. "Thank you," he said, and Lisa could hear genuine gratitude in his voice. "That's very kind of you." As he ate, Lisa noticed how he savored each bite, like someone who wasn't sure when his next good meal would come. It broke her heart a little, but also made her more determined to help in small ways whenever she could. This became their routine. Once or twice a week, Lisa would bring him extra food that the kitchen had supposedly made by mistake. Sometimes it was a bowl of soup when he had only ordered coffee. Other times it was a slice of pie that she claimed was left over from the previous day. The man never asked for these extras, and he always protested gently when she brought them. But Lisa could see relief in his eyes, and she noticed he was starting to look a little healthier. His face wasn't as thin and he seemed to sit up a bit straighter. After a few weeks of these interactions, they began having short conversations. It started with simple exchanges about the weather or how busy the diner was that day. Gradually, their talks grew longer. Lisa learned that his name was Michael, and he had recently moved to town. He was vague about his background, saying only that he was between jobs and looking for a fresh start. When she asked about his family, his expression would grow distant. "It's complicated," he would say, changing the subject. In return, Michael asked about her life. Lisa found herself sharing more than she usually did with customers. She told him about her younger brother Jake, who was studying to become a teacher at the community college. She talked about her mother, who worked as a house cleaner, despite her arthritis making it painful to do so. "I'm saving up to help them, both," Lisa explained one quiet evening as she refilled his coffee. "My brother's really smart, but college is expensive, and my mom needs to see a doctor about her hands, but she keeps putting it off because of the cost." Michael listened carefully to every word. He asked thoughtful questions about her brother's studies and her mother's condition. Unlike many customers, who asked about her life just to be polite, Michael seemed genuinely interested in her answers. "You're a good daughter and sister," he said one night. "Your family is lucky to have someone who cares so much." Lisa felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. There was something about the way Michael spoke to her that made her feel valued. He treated her like her thoughts and dreams mattered, not just like someone whose job was to bring him food. As the weeks passed, Lisa found herself looking forward to Michael's visits. She would glance at the door during her shifts, hoping to see his familiar figure in the faded leather jacket. When he arrived, her mood would lift, and the long hours at the diner didn't seem quite so difficult. She began to notice small things about him that made her curious. Despite his worn clothes and careful money counting, Michael spoke with perfect grammar and seemed well-educated. He would sometimes reference books or current events in ways that suggested he read widely. His hands were clean and soft, not like someone who did manual labor. One evening, Lisa overheard him talking quietly on his phone in the parking lot after finishing his meal. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but his voice carried through the thin diner walls as she cleaned nearby tables. "The board meeting is scheduled for Friday," she heard him say in a tense voice. "Make sure all the quarterly reports are ready. I can't afford any delays right now." When Michael came back inside to get his jacket, Lisa asked if everything was okay. "Just helping a friend with some paperwork," he said with a tired smile. "Nothing important." Lisa nodded, though something about his explanation didn't quite fit. Board meetings and quarterly reports sounded like business terms, not the kind of paperwork someone would help a friend with. But she didn't want to pry into his personal life. That night, after her shift ended, Lisa found herself thinking about Michael as she walked to her car. There was clearly more to his story than he was sharing, but she respected his privacy. Everyone had reasons for keeping certain parts of their life private. What mattered to her was that he was kind, polite, and seemed to genuinely appreciate her small acts of kindness. In a job where she often felt invisible or unimportant, Michael made her feel like she mattered, and despite his obvious financial struggles, he faced each day with dignity and grace. As Lisa drove home through the quiet streets, she made a mental note to save some leftover pie from tomorrow's shift. Michael had mentioned loving apple pie when he was younger, and she had seen him looking longingly at the dessert display case. Maybe the kitchen could accidentally make an extra slice. Winter was settling over the city, and the nights were getting longer. Lisa pulled her coat tighter as she walked into Murphy's diner for another evening shift. The warm air inside felt like a hug after the cold October wind outside. Michael had been coming to the diner for almost 2 months now, and Lisa had started to think of him as more than just another customer. Their conversations had grown from polite small talk to real discussions about life, dreams, and the world around them. Tonight, like most nights, Michael was already sitting in his corner booth when Lisa arrived for her shift. He had a cup of coffee in front of him and was reading a newspaper someone had left behind. When he saw her, his face lit up with a genuine smile that made Lisa's heart skip a little. "Good evening, Lisa," he said as she approached his table. "How was your day?" Most customers didn't bother asking about her day, and if they did, they didn't really want to hear the answer. But Michael was different. He always listened to her response like it actually mattered to him. "Long but good," Lisa replied, pulling out her notepad. "My brother Jake got his test results back today. He aced his teaching exam." "That's wonderful news," Michael said, and Lisa could see he was genuinely happy for her family. "You must be so proud of him." "I am," Lisa said, feeling her chest swell with pride. "He's wanted to be a teacher since he was little. Always said he wanted to help kids learn and grow." "Teaching is one of the most important jobs in the world," Michael said thoughtfully. "Teachers shape the future by shaping young minds. Your brother sounds like he has a good heart." Lisa smiled. Michael always had a way of making her feel like her family's achievements were important, even though they were simple, ordinary people living ordinary lives. "What can I get you tonight?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Just coffee and toast, please," Michael said, checking his pocket like he always did. But tonight, Lisa noticed something different. He looked tired, more tired than usual, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Are you feeling all right?" she asked, studying his face with concern. "Just haven't been sleeping well," he admitted. "Some personal matters I'm trying to work through." Lisa wanted to ask more, but she could see Michael wasn't ready to share whatever was troubling him. Instead, she decided to do what she always did, show kindness through actions. 20 minutes later, she returned to his table with his order, but along with the coffee and toast, she had brought a bowl of chicken soup and some crackers. "The cook made too much soup again," she said with a small smile. "It'll just go bad if nobody eats it." Michael looked at her for a long moment, and Lisa could see something emotional in his eyes. "You don't have to keep doing this, you know," he said quietly. "Doing what?" Lisa asked innocently. "Taking care of me," he said. "I know the kitchen isn't really making mistakes every time I'm here." Lisa felt her cheeks turn red. She had been caught, but instead of feeling embarrassed, she felt relieved that she could finally be honest. "Everyone needs someone to care about them," she said simply. "And soup is good for people who aren't sleeping well." Michael stared at her for a moment, then smiled. Not his usual polite smile, but something deeper and more grateful. "Thank you," he said. "You have no idea how much your kindness means to me." As the weeks passed, their conversations grew even longer and more personal. During the quiet hours at the diner, usually between 9 and 11 at night, Lisa would sit across from Michael in his booth during her short breaks. She told him about her dreams of maybe opening her own small cafe someday. "Nothing fancy," she explained. "Just a cozy place where people feel welcome. Somewhere families could afford to eat, but with really good food made with love." Michael listened to every detail of her vision. He asked about what kind of food she would serve, how she would decorate the place, and what she would call it. "I'd want it to feel like home," Lisa said, her eyes lighting up as she talked. "With comfortable chairs and warm lighting, maybe some local artwork on the walls, and I'd have a special menu for kids with healthy options that actually taste good." "That sounds perfect," Michael said. "The world needs more places like that. Places where people matter more than profit." In return, Michael began sharing small pieces of his own story. He told Lisa that he had grown up in a wealthy family, but that money had caused more problems than it solved. "My father worked constantly," he said one night, stirring his coffee slowly. "He was successful in business, but I barely knew him. He missed every birthday, every school play, every important moment. I promised myself I'd never live like that." "What about your mother?" Lisa asked gently. Michael's expression darkened. "She passed away when I was 16. Cancer. My father was too busy with work to really be there for her, even at the end." Lisa reached across the table and briefly touched his hand. "I'm so sorry," she said. The simple gesture of comfort seemed to mean everything to Michael. He looked down at where her hand had touched his, and Lisa saw tears forming in his eyes. "You're the first person in a long time who's shown me genuine kindness without wanting something in return," he said quietly. Lisa didn't know what to say to that, so she just smiled and squeezed his hand before pulling away. Their friendship deepened as November turned into December. Lisa started looking forward to Michael's visits more than anything else in her day. Even when she was exhausted from double shifts or stressed about money, seeing him in that corner booth made everything seem a little bit brighter. Michael began staying later, often until Lisa's shift ended at midnight. He would nurse his coffee and wait while she finished cleaning tables and counting the register. Then they would walk out to the parking lot together, talking under the streetlights about everything and nothing. One cold December night, Lisa was telling Michael about her mother's arthritis getting worse. She tries to hide it, but I can see. Her hands shaking when she thinks nobody's looking, Lisa said, her breath forming clouds in the cold air. Has she seen a doctor? Michael asked. She's afraid of the cost, Lisa admitted. She keeps saying she'll go next month, but next month never comes. She's worked so hard her whole life, and now her body is paying the price. Michael was quiet for a long moment. What about insurance, Marty asked. She has some, but the co-pays and deductibles are still expensive for us, Lisa explained. And she'd probably need to see a specialist, which costs even more. Lisa didn't notice the thoughtful look in Michael's eyes or the way he seemed to be making mental calculations. The next week, something wonderful happened. Lisa's mother called her at work crying happy tears. Lisa, honey, you won't believe it, her mother said through the phone. I got a letter today saying I've been selected for some kind of medical assistance program. They're going to cover all my doctor visits and treatments for my arthritis. I never even applied for anything like this. Lisa was thrilled but confused. Are you sure it's legitimate, Mom? I called the number on the letter. And it's real, her mother said. They said someone nominated me based on my work history and financial need. Can you believe it? After all these years of cleaning houses, someone noticed and wanted to help. When Lisa told Michael about her mother's good fortune that night, she was surprised to see that he didn't seem as shocked as she expected. That's wonderful news, he said with a warm smile. Your mother deserves all the help she can get. She's raised an incredible daughter. I just wish I knew who nominated her, Lisa said. I'd love to thank them. Sometimes the best kind of help comes from people who don't want to be thanked, Michael said quietly. Maybe the important thing is just accepting the gift and being grateful. Around the same time, Jake received news that he had been awarded a small scholarship for his final semester of college. Like their mother's medical assistance, it seemed to come out of nowhere. It's not a huge amount, Jake told Lisa excitedly over the phone, but it'll cover my textbooks and some of my living expenses. The letter said it was from a local education foundation that supports future teachers. Lisa was amazed by her family's sudden good luck, but she was also puzzled. These kinds of things just didn't happen to people like them. She had learned early in life that when you were poor, you had to fight for every opportunity and work twice as hard for half as much. When she mentioned her confusion to Michael, he listened thoughtfully. Maybe you underestimate how much your family deserves good things, he said. You've all worked so hard and helped so many people. Sometimes the universe finds a way to give back. Do you really believe that? Lisa asked. I believe that good. People attract good things even if it takes time, Michael said. And your family consists of very good people. As Christmas approached, Lisa realized that somewhere along the way, her feelings for Michael had grown beyond friendship. She looked forward to seeing him every day, not just because he was kind and interesting, but because being around him made her feel happy in a way she had never experienced before. She started paying more attention to little things about him, the way he smiled when she laughed, how he remembered every detail of the stories she told him about her family, and the gentle way he spoke to everyone around him, even when he thought nobody was watching. But Lisa also knew that Michael was struggling financially, just like she was. Whatever feelings were growing between them, she didn't want to complicate his life or make him feel pressured. She was content to simply enjoy their friendship and the warmth it brought to her days. What Lisa didn't know was that Michael was having the exact same thoughts about her, and that the mysterious help her family had been receiving wasn't nearly as mysterious as it seemed. The call came at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday in January. Lisa was fast asleep in her small apartment when her phone rang, jolting her awake. She fumbled for it in the darkness, her heart already racing because nobody called at this hour unless something was terribly wrong. "Lisa?" It was Jake's voice, shaky and scared. "You need to get to the hospital right now, it's Mom." Lisa's blood turned cold. What happened? She had chest pains at work tonight. Mrs. Henderson found her collapsed in the kitchen and called. "An ambulance. The doctors are saying it's her heart." Lisa threw on clothes and drove to the hospital faster than she had ever driven in her life. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. All she could think about was her mother, who had worked so hard her entire life and never complained about anything. At the hospital, Lisa found Jake pacing in the waiting room. His eyes were red from crying, and he looked younger than his 22 years. "What did the doctor say?" Lisa asked, pulling him into a hug. "She needs surgery," Jake said, his voice breaking. "Something about blocked arteries. They said if Mrs. Henderson hadn't found her when she did." He didn't finish the sentence, but Lisa understood. Her mother had almost died cleaning someone else's house, working late into the night because she needed the extra money. The next few hours were a blur of medical forms, insurance paperwork, and waiting. Lisa sat in uncomfortable plastic chairs, drinking terrible hospital coffee and praying to anyone who might be listening. When the surgeon finally came out to talk to them, he explained that the operation had been successful, but their mother would need several more procedures over the next few months. Each surgery would cost thousands of dollars, even with insurance. "We'll figure it out," Lisa told Jake, though she had no idea how. "Mom's going to be okay. That's all that matters right now." But as the days passed and the medical bills started arriving, Lisa felt like she was drowning. The first surgery alone cost more money than she made in 6 months. Even with the insurance covering part of it, her portion was overwhelming. She picked up extra shifts at 2 other restaurants across town, working from 6 in the morning until midnight every single day. She would rush from Murphy's Diner to a breakfast place downtown, then to a fancy restaurant that served dinner to wealthy customers who barely looked at her when she brought their food. Lisa lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks. Her clothes hung loose on her frame and dark circles formed under her eyes. Her hands shook from exhaustion, and she started making small mistakes at work, forgetting orders, dropping plates, spilling coffee. But she couldn't afford to slow down. Every dollar mattered now. At Murphy's Diner, Michael noticed the change immediately. Lisa had always been thin, but now she looked fragile, like a strong wind might blow her away. Her usual warm smile was replaced by a tired, forced expression that broke his heart. "Lisa," he said one evening when she brought him his usual coffee and toast, "are you feeling all right? You look exhausted." "I'm fine," Lisa lied, but her voice was flat and unconvincing. "Just busy with some family stuff." Michael could see she wasn't fine, but he didn't want to push. Instead, he watched her move around the diner with growing concern. She stumbled slightly while carrying a tray of food, caught herself, and kept going like nothing had happened. 2 weeks later, Lisa finally broke down. She was refilling Michael's coffee when her hands started shaking so badly she almost dropped the pot. Michael gently took it from her and set it on the table. "Lisa, please sit down," he said softly. "Tell me what's wrong." Lisa looked around the nearly empty diner, then collapsed into the seat across from Michael. The words poured out of her like water from a broken dam. She told him about her mother's heart attack, the surgeries, the crushing medical bills. She explained how she was working 3 jobs but still couldn't make enough money to cover everything. Her voice cracked as she talked about having to drop out of the night classes she had been taking, giving up her dream of maybe improving her life. "I'm so tired," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. And Mom needs more surgery next month. The doctors say if she doesn't get it..." She couldn't finish the sentence. Michael reached across the table and took her hands in his. They were so small and cold, and he could feel her trembling. "How much do you need?" he asked quietly. Lisa pulled her hands away and wiped her eyes. "It doesn't matter. I'll figure something out. I always do." "Lisa, how much?" She shook her head. "I can't ask you for money, Michael. I know you're struggling too. You count your change every time you order coffee." Michael felt his heart breaking. Here was this incredible woman, working herself to death to save her mother, and she was worried about asking him for help because she thought he was poor. "Just tell me the amount," he said gently. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Then in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, $43,000. That's what the insurance won't cover for all the surgeries she needs. Michael nodded, his mind already working. "I'm going to help you," he said. "Michael, no," Lisa protested. "You barely have enough money for your own food. I've seen you count every dollar before ordering. I can't take money from you." "You're not taking anything," Michael said firmly. "I'm giving it. There's a difference." Lisa started to argue, but Michael held up his hand. "Please," he said. "Let me do this. You've given me so much kindness over these past months. You've made me feel human again when I was lost. Let me give something back." Lisa stared at him through her tears. "But how? Where would you get that kind of money?" Michael was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I have some savings," he said finally. "Money I've been holding on to for the right reason. Your mother's health is the right reason." It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. That night, after Lisa's shift ended, Michael made several phone calls. By morning, he had arranged for an anonymous donation to be made to the hospital to cover all of Lisa's mother's medical expenses. When Lisa got the call from the hospital the next day, she was working the breakfast shift at the downtown restaurant. The financial counselor explained that an anonymous benefactor had paid off her mother's entire medical bill. "There must be some mistake," Lisa said, stepping outside into the cold morning air. "Nobody would just pay that much money for a stranger." "There's no mistake," the woman assured her. "The donation was made specifically for your mother's care. The donor requested to remain anonymous, but they left a note saying that kindness should always be rewarded." Lisa sat down on the curb outside the restaurant and cried. Not the exhausted, desperate tears she had been crying for weeks, but tears of relief and gratitude. For the first time since her mother's heart attack, she felt like she could breathe again. When she saw Michael that evening at Murphy's Diner, she threw her arms around him before he could even sit down. "Michael, the most incredible thing happened," she said, her face glowing with happiness for the first time in weeks. "Someone paid for all of Mom's medical bills, an anonymous donor. Can you believe it?" Michael hugged her back, trying to keep his expression neutral. "That's wonderful news," he said. "Your family deserves all the help they can get." "I wish I knew who it was," Lisa said, pulling back to look at him. "I want to thank them. They saved my mother's life." "Maybe some gifts are meant to be given without recognition," Michael said gently. "Maybe the joy of helping is thanks enough." Lisa studied his face for a moment, and Michael wondered if she suspected anything. But then she smiled and shook her head. "You're probably right," she said. "I'm just so grateful. I feel like I can finally sleep again." Over the next few days, Lisa's life slowly returned to normal. She quit the extra jobs and went back to working, only at Murphy's Diner. The color returned to her cheeks and her warm smile came back. She even started talking about her dreams again, the cafe she wanted to open, the night classes she planned to resume. Michael watched her transformation with deep satisfaction. Seeing Lisa happy and healthy again was worth more to him than any amount of money. But he also knew that his secret was becoming harder to keep. The phone calls were getting more frequent, and his assistant had started showing up at the diner, looking for him. His business empire needed his attention, but he couldn't bear the thought of losing the authentic connection he had found with Lisa. One evening, as he sat in his corner booth watching Lisa laugh with another customer, Michael realized he was facing an impossible choice. He could continue pretending to be someone he wasn't, or he could tell Lisa the truth and risk losing her forever. The decision was made for him sooner than he expected. It was a busy Friday evening at Murphy's Diner when everything changed. Lisa was rushing between tables, taking orders and refilling coffee cups, when she noticed a man in an expensive dark suit standing near the entrance. He looked completely out of place among the diner's usual customers, checking his gold watch and scanning the room with sharp, businesslike eyes. The man's gaze stopped when he spotted Michael in his usual corner booth. Lisa watched as the stranger's expression shifted from searching to relieved, then to something that looked almost like frustration. Michael had his back to the entrance, reading a newspaper and sipping his coffee, completely unaware that someone was looking for him. The man in the suit walked purposefully toward Michael's table, his leather shoes clicking on the diner's worn linoleum floor. "Mr. Harrison?" the man said in a low but urgent voice. Lisa felt her stomach drop. She had never heard anyone call Michael by a last name before. In all their months of conversations, she had only known him as Michael. Michael's entire body went rigid. He slowly turned around, and Lisa could see the color drain from his face when he saw the man in the suit. "What are you doing here, Robert?" Michael asked quietly, glancing around the diner nervously. "Sir, I've been trying to reach you for 3 days," Robert replied, keeping his voice low but clearly agitated. "The board meeting was moved up to Monday. The investors are getting restless about your absence, and there are decisions that only you can make." Lisa pretended to wipe down a nearby table, straining to hear their conversation. Board meetings? Investors? These weren't words that fit with the struggling man she had come to know and care about. "Can't this wait?" Michael asked, looking uncomfortable. "No, sir, it cannot," Robert said firmly. "Harrison Industries needs its CEO. You've been gone for 4 months, and people are starting to ask questions. The company stock has been fluctuating because of rumors about your whereabouts." Lisa's hands froze on the table she was cleaning. "CEO? Harrison Industries?" She felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. Michael looked around the diner again and saw Lisa standing just a few tables away. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Lisa saw something in his expression that looked like panic mixed with shame. "We'll discuss this outside," Michael said to Robert, standing up quickly and leaving money on the table for his coffee. Lisa watched through the diner's large windows as the two men stood in the parking lot, having what appeared to be an intense conversation. Robert was gesturing with his hands, clearly frustrated, while Michael kept running his fingers through his hair and looking back at the diner. After about 10 minutes, Robert got into a sleek black car and drove away. Michael stood alone in the parking lot for a long moment, staring at the ground, before walking back into the diner. He sat down in his booth without saying anything, looking like a man who had just received terrible news. Lisa approached his table slowly, her mind racing with questions. "Is everything okay?" she asked, though she already knew the answer was no. Michael looked up at her, and Lisa could see conflict in his eyes. "Lisa, he started, then stopped. "I need to tell you something." "About Harrison Industries?" Lisa asked quietly. Michael's face went pale. "You heard that?" "I heard enough," Lisa said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Who are you really, Michael?" For a long moment, Michael said nothing. He stared at his hands on the table, gathering courage for what he knew would be the most important conversation of his life. "My full name is Michael Harrison," he said finally. "I'm the CEO of Harrison Industries." Lisa felt like she had been punched in the stomach. "Harrison Industries," she repeated slowly. "The tech company? The one that's worth billions of dollars?" Michael nodded miserably. "Yes. So you're—" Lisa struggled to find the words. "You're rich. Really rich." "Yes," Michael said again, barely above a whisper. Lisa stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I need a minute," she said, walking quickly toward the restroom. In the small bathroom, Lisa stared at herself in the cracked mirror, trying to process what she had just learned. The man she had been bringing free food to, the man she had worried about because he couldn't afford to tip, the man she had fallen in love with. He was a billionaire. She felt stupid, embarrassed, and angry all at the same time. Had this all been some kind of game to him? Was she just entertainment for a bored rich man who wanted to see how poor people lived? When she came back to the table, Michael was still sitting in the same position, looking miserable. "How long?" Lisa asked, not sitting down. "How long what? How long have you been lying to me?" Michael flinched at the word lying. "From the beginning," he admitted. "But Lisa, please let me explain." "Explain what?" Lisa's voice was getting louder, and other customers were starting to look their way. Explain how you've been pretending to be poor while I've been feeling sorry for you. Explain how you let me bring you free food when you could buy this entire diner without thinking twice about it. It wasn't like that, Michael said desperately. Please just sit down and let me tell you the whole story. Lisa remained standing, her arms crossed. I'm listening. Michael took a deep breath. 4 months ago, my father died. He built Harrison Industries from nothing, and when he passed away, I inherited everything. But I also inherited his problems. He paused, looking around the diner. My father was like Robert, all business all the time. He never had real relationships, just business connections. When he died, I realized I was exactly like him. Everyone in my life was there because of my money, including my ex-wife. Lisa's expression softened slightly, but she still didn't sit down. I found out after the funeral that my ex-wife had been cheating on me with my business partner. Michael continued. She told me she had never loved me, just my bank account. I felt completely alone, like nobody would ever care about me as a person instead of as a wallet. So you decided to play pretend? Lisa asked. I decided to find out what it felt like to be valued for who I am, not what I have, Michael said. I started coming here dressed like this, ordering cheap food because I wanted to see if anyone would treat me with kindness when they thought I had nothing to offer. Lisa finally sat down, though she kept her distance. And I was your experiment? No, Michael said quickly. At first, maybe. But that changed so fast, Lisa. Your kindness wasn't about my money because you thought I didn't have any. When you brought me extra food, or stayed to talk with me, it was because you cared about me as a person. Do you have any idea how rare that is? So the medical bills? Lisa asked. My mother's surgery? That was you? Michael nodded. I couldn't watch you work yourself to death when I had the power to help. Without telling me, Lisa said. You let me think it was some miracle. I was afraid, Michael admitted. I was afraid that if you knew who I really was, everything would change between us. And I was right, wasn't it? Look at how you're looking at me now. Lisa stared at him for a long moment. It was true, everything had changed. The man sitting across from her looked the same, but everything she thought she knew about him had been turned upside down. I don't know what to think, she said honestly. I thought I knew you. I thought we had something real. We do have something real, Michael said desperately. My feelings for you are the most real thing in my life. I love you, Lisa. Not because you're beautiful, though you are. Not because you're kind, though you are. I love you because when I was with you, I felt like myself for the first time in years. Lisa felt tears forming in her eyes. But you lied to me about everything. How do I know what's real and what's not? Because you know me, Michael said. The man who sits in this booth every night, who listens to your dreams about opening a cafe, who cares about your family. That's who I really am. The money doesn't change that. Doesn't it? Lisa asked. You're a billionaire, Michael. I'm a waitress who lives in a tiny apartment and drives a car that's older than my brother. We're from completely different worlds. So we're Romeo and Juliet, Michael said with a sad smile. That didn't end well for them, Lisa pointed out. They sat, in silence for several minutes, both lost in their own thoughts. Around them, the diner continued its normal evening routine, but for Lisa and Michael, everything had changed. Finally, Lisa spoke. I need time to think about this, she said. I need to figure out what I'm feeling and what this all means. Michael nodded, though Lisa could see the fear in his eyes. I understand. But Lisa, please remember that everything between us has been real. My feelings are conversations the way I feel when I'm with you. None of that was fake. Lisa stood up again. I have to get back to work, she said. My shift doesn't end for another hour. Will you be here tomorrow? Michael asked hopefully. I work tomorrow, Lisa said, but I don't know if you should come. Michael's face fell, but he nodded. I'll respect whatever you decide. As Lisa walked away to serve other customers, she felt like her whole world had been turned upside down. The man she had fallen in love with was still the same person, But everything about their situation had changed completely. She spent the rest of her shift replaying every conversation they had ever had, looking for clues she had missed. Now that she knew the truth, some things made more sense. His education, his way of speaking, the mysterious phone calls about board meetings. But other things made less sense. If he was so rich, why had he seemed so genuinely grateful for her? Small acts of kindness. Why had he looked so lonely and lost when she first met him? As she cleaned tables and took orders, Lisa realized she had a choice to make. She could focus on the deception and let it destroy whatever they had built together. Or she could try to understand why he had felt the need to hide his true identity in the first place. Either way, she knew that nothing would ever be the same between them again. 3 days passed without Michael coming to the diner. Lisa found herself looking toward his corner booth every few minutes, expecting to see him sitting there with his usual coffee and newspaper. But the booth remained empty, and she felt an ache in her chest that surprised her with its intensity. She tried to convince herself that his absence was for the best. How could she trust someone who had lied to her for months? How could they possibly have a relationship when he was worth billions and she could barely pay her rent? But late at night, when the diner was quiet and she was wiping down tables, Lisa found herself missing their conversations. She missed the way Michael listened to her dreams, the gentle questions he asked about her family, and the comfort she felt when he was nearby. Money or no money, those moments had felt real. On the 4th day, Michael finally returned. But he looked different. Gone were the worn jeans and faded leather jacket. Instead, he wore a well-tailored navy suit, expensive shoes, and a watch that probably cost more than Lisa made in a year. He looked like the billionaire CEO he actually was. Lisa's heart jumped when she saw him, but she felt nervous too. This version of Michael seemed like a stranger. He sat in his usual corner booth and waited patiently until Lisa approached his table. She noticed that other customers were staring at him, clearly wondering why someone so obviously wealthy was eating at Murphy's diner. "Hi," Michael said softly when she reached his table. "Hi," Lisa replied, keeping her voice neutral. "What can I get you?" "Just coffee, please," Michael said, "and a chance to talk if you're willing." Lisa looked around the diner. It was a slow Tuesday afternoon, and her manager wouldn't mind if she took a short break. "5 minutes," she said, sitting across from him. Michael nodded gratefully. "I know you're angry with me, and you have every right to be. I've been thinking about what you said, and I understand why you feel betrayed." "Do you?" Lisa asked. "Because I don't think you can possibly understand what it's like to worry about money every single day, and then find out that someone you cared about was pretending to have those same worries." "You're right," Michael said. "I can't understand that. But I can understand what it's like to feel completely alone, wondering if anyone would care about you if they couldn't get something from you." Lisa studied his face. Even in the expensive suit, she could see the same sadness in his eyes that had drawn her to him in the first place. "That night you told me about your mother's medical bills," Michael continued. "I wanted to help you so badly it physically hurt. Not because I felt sorry for you, but because I couldn't bear watching someone I cared about suffer when I had the power to fix it. But you didn't tell me it was you," Lisa said. "Because I was terrified," Michael admitted. "I was terrified that if you knew who I really was, you'd start looking at me the way everyone else does, like a bank account instead of a person." Lisa was quiet for a moment, turning his words over in her mind. "What happens now?" she asked finally. "That depends on you," Michael said. "I know I hurt you by not being honest from the beginning. I know our situations are complicated, but Lisa, what I feel for you is real, more real than anything I've ever experienced." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. "I wrote you a letter," he said, placing it on the table between them. "Everything I want to say but don't know how to say out loud. You don't have to read it now, but please take it." Lisa looked at the envelope but didn't pick it up. "Michael, I don't know if this can work. We're from completely different worlds." "Maybe," Michael said. "But maybe that doesn't matter as much as we think it does. Before Lisa could respond, her manager called her name from across the diner. Her break was over. "I have to get back to work," she said, standing up. "I understand," Michael said. "But Lisa, whatever you decide, I want you to know that these past few months have been the best of my life. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever, the feeling of being valued for who I am inside." Lisa picked up the envelope and tucked it into her apron pocket. "I'll read it," she promised. That night, after her shift ended, Lisa sat in her small apartment and opened Michael's letter. His handwriting was neat and careful, and as she read, she could almost hear his voice speaking. The words. The letter was 3 pages long. In it, Michael told her about his childhood, growing up wealthy but lonely. He wrote about his father, who had loved money more than people, and his ex-wife, who had never seen him as anything more than a source of financial security. He described the emptiness he had felt after his father's death, the crushing realization that he had no real friends, no one who cared about him for himself. He wrote about the first night he came to Murphy's diner, how her simple kindness had been like water to someone dying of thirst. "You asked me what happens now," he had written near the end of the letter. "Here's what I want to happen. I want to prove to you that money doesn't have to change who we are to each other. I want to support your dreams without overwhelming them. I want to love you the way you deserve to be loved, completely, honestly, and without any conditions except that you let me." The letter ended with a proposal, but not the kind Lisa had expected. "I've been thinking about your dream of opening a cafe," Michael had written. "What if we could make that happen? Not as a gift from me to you, but as a partnership. You would own the majority of the business, make all the decisions, and run it exactly the way you've always imagined. I would just be an investor, someone who believes in your vision. What do you think about that?" Lisa read the letter twice, then sat staring at the wall of her tiny apartment for a long time. Michael was offering her everything she had ever dreamed of. But was it too good to be true? The next day was Lisa's day off, but she found herself driving to Murphy's diner anyway. She needed to see Michael, to talk to him face to face about what she had decided. When she arrived, she was surprised to find the parking lot full of news, vans, and reporters. Inside the diner, she saw Michael sitting in his corner booth, surrounded by cameras and microphones. He looked uncomfortable and trapped. Lisa pushed through the crowd of reporters until she reached his table. "What's going on?" she asked. "Someone leaked that I've been coming here," Michael explained. "The media wants to know why a billionaire has been eating at a small diner for months." A reporter shoved a microphone toward Lisa. "Are you his girlfriend? Is this some kind of publicity stunt?" Lisa looked at the chaos around them, then at Michael's face. He looked miserable, like the lonely man she had first met months ago. Without hesitation, Lisa climbed onto a chair so everyone could see her. "Listen up," she said loudly, and the crowd grew quiet. "This man has been coming to our diner for months, and I can tell you exactly why. It's because he's kind, respectful, and genuine. He tips well, says please and thank you, and treats everyone with dignity. I don't care how much money he has, those qualities are what matter." She looked down at Michael, who was staring at her with amazement and gratitude. "Money doesn't make someone a good person," Lisa continued. "Character does. And Michael Harrison has more character than anyone I've ever met." The reporters shouted questions, but Lisa ignored them. She climbed down from the chair and extended her hand to Michael. "Come on," she said. "Let's get out of here." Michael took her hand and stood up. Together they walked through the crowd of reporters and out to the parking lot. "Why did you do that?" Michael asked when they were finally alone. "Because I realized something while reading your letter," Lisa said. "I fell in love with you before I knew about your money. The man I love is still sitting right here, whether he's wearing old jeans or an expensive suit." Michael's face lit up with hope. "Does that mean—" "It means I want to try," Lisa said. "But we do this my way, slowly, honestly, and as equals." "Equals?" Michael asked. "You have money," Lisa said with a smile. "But I have something you've been looking for your whole life, a family that loves unconditionally. So maybe we both have something valuable to offer. Michael laughed, and for the first time since the revelation, Lisa saw the man she had fallen in love with shining through. So about that cafe, she said. I have some ideas about how we could make it work. 6 months later, Lisa opened Corner Cafe in a renovated building just 2 blocks from Murphy's Diner. True to his word, Michael had provided the funding, but left all the decisions to Lisa. She owned 70% of the business, and every aspect of it reflected her vision. The cafe had comfortable mismatched chairs, local artwork on the walls, and a menu that focused on affordable, healthy meals made with love. Lisa hired 3 other single mothers as employees and started a program that provided free meals to families in need. Michael kept his promise to be honest about who he was, but he also proved that his wealth didn't have to define their relationship. He still came in for coffee every evening, though now he sat at a small table near the window instead of hiding in a corner booth. The night before the cafe's grand opening, Lisa and Michael sat together after hours, surrounded by the warm lighting and comfortable atmosphere she had always dreamed of creating. Are you nervous? Michael asked, reaching for her hand across the table. Terrified, Lisa admitted, but excited too. You're going to be amazing, Michael said. This place is perfect. It's exactly what the neighborhood needs. Lisa looked around, at her cafe, their cafe, and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had achieved her dream, but more importantly, she had found love with someone who valued her for exactly who she was. Michael, she said, I need to ask you something. Anything. When you first started coming to Murphy's Diner, did you ever imagine it would lead to this? Michael smiled, bringing her hand to his lips for a gentle kiss. I hoped, he said. I hoped that someday I might find someone who could love me for who I am inside. I just never imagined that person would also inspire me to become a better man. As they sat together in the cafe Lisa had built and Michael had believed in, both of them knew they had found something more valuable than money. They had found a love built on authenticity, kindness, and the courage to be vulnerable with each other. The next morning, Corner Cafe opened its doors to a line of customers that stretched around the block, and Lisa's dream of creating a place where everyone felt welcome finally came true.